Chapter 1474. Wu Jueqing looked at Chu Yang in despair, panting weakly. This fact had already completely defeated him. His pupils were already dilated, as if he had lost consciousness, or as if he was walking on clouds. His entire body was weightless, floating in the air. Beside his ears, there was constantly the sound of heaven-shaking thunder fiercely striking over and over again. Chu Yang's words turned into such a shocking thunder, driving fiercely into Wu Jueqing's heart. It caused his spiritual consciousness to scatter. Chu Yang continued to speak. The final path of the Seeking Tribulation's Swordmaster that you mentioned just now, this is it. The Seeking Tribulation's Sword Master dies and his Tao vanishes, using his body to open the path to reincarnation, opening the door to the outer realm. Bones as walls, flesh paving the way, blood as wind, soul as the sky, sending my brothers to battle the extraterrestrial demons in the outer realm, nurturing my brothers and reconstructing their bodies. Second update. Becoming an immortal golden body, allowing my brothers to dominate the outer realm and achieve immortal achievements, enjoying the glory of heaven and earth, receiving the highest honor. In other words, the Swordmaster's sacrifice will allow his brothers to become immortal golden bodies after reconstructing their bodies. In the outer realm battlefield, there will be an additional guarantee of life. Wu Jueqing didn't speak or move. He just stood there stiffly, as if he was a wooden statue. Just now, his gaze was still very complicated, even very agitated. But now, it had become completely numb, completely without any luster or focus. What is very admirable is that the past Seeking Tribulation's Sword Masters all chose the second path. They all chose to sacrifice themselves and send their brothers over. Therefore, at the last moment, they would make their brothers sad. The more serious the injuries, the better, until they hurt them to the point where they would never forgive them. Then, they would kill all their brothers and send their souls into the outer realm passageway, wait until the dust settles. After the Sword Master collected the bodies of his brothers and buried them properly, he would turn into smoke and dust and completely disappear from the world. No, it's not appropriate to say that he would disappear from the world. Because the final destination of his death is still. Part 7, Chapter 700, Regret. Second update. That brother's passageway. Because the Swordmaster's soul will only truly vanish after all of his brothers have walked through that passage. Only when he escorts, watches, and feels his brothers pass through that passage can he truly rest in peace and go to his place. Chu Yang said softly, "Your elder brother should be the same. Because you're still alive. This is already a clear proof. Even though Ni Shabei had been rescued and escaped alive. It's the same." Wu Jueqing stood there in a daze, not moving for a long time. Chu Yang knew that his mood was extremely complicated right now. So, he didn't disturb him and just quietly accompanied him. After a long time, Wu Jueqing's body suddenly trembled slightly. He seemed to have recovered some mobility from his stiff state. After this slight tremble, he began to tremble violently. His entire body trembled like the wind. He opened his mouth. His mouth was wide open, as if he was suffering from extreme hypoxia and severe suffocation. He gasped heavily for air, and his breathing became more and more rapid. It seemed that the more he gasped for air, the harder it was for him to catch his breath. A strange sound came from his throat. Hair, hair, hair. This sound. It was filled with endless pain, and Chu Yang could hear it from the side. He also couldn't help but feel a kind of bitterness and unbearable regret. It was a kind of guilt that came from extreme despair, a guilt that could never be made up for. Wu Jueqing's body trembled more and more violently. Finally, he shook his head lightly. 2 streams of tears suddenly flowed left and right as he shook his head. Then, he continued to gasp for air and tremble. Yet, his tears were like a river bursting its banks, gushing out violently and ceaselessly. Then, he actually started to laugh. Tears gushed out like a fountain. He laughed self-deprecatingly and regretfully. Ha ha ha, elder brother, boss. Boss. Ha ha ha, his body trembled and swayed twice. Then, Wu Jueqing slowly knelt down. His whole body knelt down and eventually lay flat on the ground. He couldn't make any sound at all. He just knelt on the ground in a daze, his 2 hands desperately scratching at the snow with pure physical strength. He grabbed a handful of snow and squeezed it tightly. Then, he crushed it completely. Then, he grabbed it again and squeezed it again. Then, he crazily stuffed the cold snow into his mouth and stuffed it in. With snow that was almost choking him to death in his mouth, he suddenly kowtowed fiercely. Bang! Bang bang bang! He pressed his head against the snow and roared soundlessly, but only the sound of heavy breathing could be heard. Boss! 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 Wu Jueqing murmured softly. Chu Yang could even clearly sense that at this moment, Wu Jueqing's heart was shattering piece by piece. Boss! I've hated you for 38,814 years. 38,814 years, such a long time, such a bitter hatred. Wu Jueqing chuckled miserably in utter despair. You're really impressive. You're really awesome. You've sold yourself out just like that. And you still want us to hate you forever. You're really something. I'm impressed by you, really impressed by you. Haha. Boss, you're a Han. You're fucking a Han. You're fucking a Han. You fucking a Han. I fucking a Han. He suddenly jumped up and roared towards the sky. Big brother. Big brother. Little brother, I've let you down. He used all the strength in his body and suddenly roared, Little brother, I'm sorry. Following that roar, all the snow mountains within a radius of several hundred miles actually experienced an avalanche at the same time without any warning. And it wasn't just an avalanche, there were also countless mountains collapsing at the same time. Snow rolled and surged down. Mountain rocks rolled and scattered in all directions. Wu Jueqing pounded his chest with his hands and roared in a suppressed manner, Chu Yang looked up and sighed. Tribulation, tribulation sword master, brothers of life and death, but the ending was like this. All of them were like this, without exception. The brothers of tribulation entered the extraterrestrial passageway with the utmost hatred for their boss that they had always worshipped and respected. They fought the extraterrestrial demons and would never forget their boss's final betrayal. That hatred was undoubtedly a poisonous thorn in everyone's heart, a thorn that could never be removed or removed. It was enough to make these heroes unable to sleep at night and feel heartache, but how would the Tribulation Sword Master feel when he personally destroyed his brothers' physical bodies and sent them into the passageway, and then everyone left and the Tribulation Sword Master collected the corpses of his brothers alone? Who could imagine? When he entered the passageway to protect his brothers, how did he feel when he saw his brothers' resentment towards him? The ending of a true hero of a generation. How miserable and sorrowful was that? Even if the Tribulation Sword Master didn't regret his own sacrifice, this was still the most tragic thing in the world. Wu Jueqing was lucky enough to escape from there. With revenge as his goal, he hated the Tribulation Sword Master to the core for more than 30,000 years. But now he realized that it was all a misunderstanding. It turned out that he was wrong and hated the wrong person. How would he feel? How could these feelings be covered up by the word death? The Master of Calamity Sword was dead and had no more emotions. However, although his brothers had a bright future and had become powerful masters, they were still living a life worse than death. Every time he thought about it, his heart would break. This feeling, how could the word miserable be enough to describe it? On the other side, Chu Yang was already on high alert. Although he had already done so much foreshadowing, Wu Jueqing's agitation still couldn't help but explode. After all, it was tens of thousands of years of hatred, tens of thousands of years of accumulation. In the end, the hatred was wrong and the resentment was wrong. How could he endure it? It was too late to commit suicide. Although Chu Yang still maintained his composure, in reality, he had already raised his cultivation to the limit. At this moment, Chu Yang was like a bow that was fully loaded. As long as Wu Jueqing showed the slightest sign of self-destruction, Chu Yang would immediately rush up and do his best to stop him. It seemed that more than half of the signs were already out. Wu Jueqing was already shouting, "Boss, I'm sorry." Next, it seemed like it was time for him to apologize with his death, right? In Chu Yang's expectation, as long as the old guy showed any intention of circulating his energy, raising his energy or raising his palm, it would be time for him to take action. But Chu Yang waited for a long time. This bow was about to break, But Wu Jueqing still didn't make any move. He really didn't make any move. After a bout of hysterical venting, Wu Jueqing just stood there quietly, not moving at all. The only slight movement seemed to be the faint sound of tears dripping from his eyes into the snow. If Chu Yang hadn't raised his cultivation to the limit, he might not have been able to hear it with just his ears. But even if he couldn't hear it, he could still see it. In front of Wu Jueqing's feet, there was already a small depression in the snow. That was the proof of hot tears dripping down. For a long, long time, Wu Jueqing stood there like a statue. His originally rapid breathing slowly became steady. His eyes were red. Endless sorrow, regret, and guilt emanated from him. Extraterrestrial battle against the extraterrestrial demons. Wu Jueqing murmured, "Boss, is this your final wish?" He stood there in a daze, staring blankly at the snowflakes floating in the sky. He didn't seem to realize at all that the mountains were shaking and the earth was shaking around him. It was as if in this place where snow fell from the sky, he saw that resolute face from back then again, a face that he had once respected and hated immensely, a face that he missed endlessly now. He seemed to hear that person say again, "Ah Cheng, I've always been here. Ah Cheng, among the brothers, you have the best background and the deepest foundation. But your temper is also the most impulsive. If there comes a day when the brothers aren't by your side, you must remember not to be impulsive. No matter what happens, we'll always be here. Whether you're right or wrong, we'll always support you. I'm Yun Dong. I'm standing on the firmament, my sword pointing at by Yun Dong. Who dares to bully my brothers? Brothers, the battle is ours, but victory is ours." Chapter 1475. Recalling what Boss said back then, it was as if they were still echoing in his ears. And that face was still in front of him, looking at him warmly. Wu Jueqing's heart was filled with grief. He choked and couldn't speak. "I'm sorry, Boss. I actually misunderstood you for so many years. I was actually so muddle-headed. I'm sorry, Boss, I was young and impulsive. I hope you don't blame me. One day, this little brother will definitely make amends for you. I will apologize to you face to face." Wu Jueqing roared into the sky. Suddenly, his right hand moved. With a clang, he drew his sword. When Chu Yang saw that Wu Jueqing had gradually calmed down, he had thought that his efforts had been in vain. Now that he saw it in shock, his heart and mind were greatly shaken. Like a ghost, he rushed over at high speed, reaching out to snatch his sword. "No." Wu Jueqing stretched out his hand and stopped the 7th Division. Chapter 770. Brother's wish is also my wish. Third update. He stopped Chu Yang and said calmly, "Did you think that I would commit suicide?" Chu Yang was stunned. He stuttered, "Isn't that the case? Then why did you draw your sword?" Wu Jueqing roared into laughter. His laughter stirred up the wind and clouds. Wu Jueqing pointed his sword at the sky. His black hair flew in the wind. Wind and clouds swept the snow around him. At this moment, it was as if Wu Jueqing wanted to summon the wind and clouds to attack the heaven and earth. He laughed loudly. His voice was like gold and stone. He said word by word, "If I can really comfort Boss's soul in heaven, my life is nothing. But what is Boss's wish? Boss's wish is unfulfilled. How can I, Wu Jueqing, die just like that? Even if I have to die, I have to fulfill Boss's wish before I can die." This sentence made Chu Yang clearly feel that Wu Jueqing had condensed all of his blood, sweat, and tears into this sentence, or rather, this oath. An oath that came from the soul. Although Boss is no longer around, his wish is still there. He suffered so much for his brothers. He sacrificed everything and shouldered too much, just so that his brothers could fight the extraterrestrial demons. If I, Wu Jueqing, had actually hastily ended my own life because of remorse and guilt, then Part 7, Chapter 770, Brother's wish is my wish. Third update. Then I would be the #1 coward in the world. How can I face Boss? What meaning is there in Boss's death? If that's the case, even if I really die, I won't have the face to ask Boss for forgiveness. Wu Jueqing said softly, "I've decided. I want to do it while I'm still alive. No matter the cost. Charge up the heavenly palace and slay the heavenly demon. I won't turn back until I've killed all the Skyfiends. Although his voice was soft, it was firm. Unshakable. Chu Yang was finally relieved. He was moved and said, "Good ambition. I will fulfill boss's wish for him." Wu Jueqing said, at the moment when the heavenly palace cleared away all the extraterrestrial demons. "I, Wu Jueqing, will personally seek boss forgiveness, apologize to him face to face." His red eyes were filled with passion. "I must find boss. Tell boss how much I hated him for the past 30,000 years. I must tell him. I was wrong. I admit my mistake, but I must beat him up. That bastard hid it from us and deceived us. I'll definitely get even with him. Our brothers will be there. I will. We need to find him and apologize to him face to face." Wu Jueqing shouted fiercely, "Boss, how are we supposed to endure this? Tens of thousands of years of hatred is a misunderstanding. How are we, the brothers who have scolded you for 30,000 years, supposed to continue living in this world? To enjoy the glory of the heavens and the riches of eternity? Don't you understand us? We're brothers." Chu Yang was shocked. He said, "But his soul has already dissipated. How are you going to find him?" Wu Jueqing laughed loudly. "He won't bear to leave us. I will definitely find him. Heaven and earth, no matter where, I will definitely find him. After slaying the heavenly demon. So what if his soul has dissipated? By then, my soul will also dissipate and we will return to the same place. Do you think I won't be able to find him?" With a wave of his sword, the snow under his feet flew up neatly along with the sword. 1,000 feet of ground was created out of thin air, revealing the mountain rocks under the snow. Then, he swung his sword down again. An abnormally smooth vertical surface suddenly appeared. The sword moved again, shooting out an extremely powerful sword aura. Stone chips flew from the stone walls instantly. Stepping on the heavens, pointing my sword at Bai Yundong, "Boss, our Cheng was wrong." Wu Jueqing. Then, he wailed loudly. His sword drew a brilliant sword flower and returned to its sheath with a clang. "Boss, I'm going to find them. Those bastards, I must let them know the truth. Boss's reputation must not be tarnished by anyone, not even by our own brothers. If those fellows still dare to slander you, I will fight them to the death." Jun Veiling, Meng Changa, Shimen Wanli. Brothers, I've found the truth, I've found an explanation. But, how are we going to face this explanation? Wu Jueqing murmured painfully, "How can we face such an explanation?" Wu Jueqing tidied his clothes and knelt down in front of the stone wall. Facing the words stepping on the heavens, pointing my sword at Bai Yundong, he kowtowed loudly. "Boss, will you be lonely for too long? Boss, I understand your heart completely now. Boss, I'm sorry. On behalf of the brothers, I apologize to Boss. I'm sorry." He knelt on the ground, his forehead pressed against the ground. Tears flowed like a fountain and he didn't get up for a long time. Snow mountains, cliffs, stone tablets, engraved words, one person kneeling, wind and snow whistling. Chu Yang looked at all of this in a daze, his heart filled with endless emotions. After a long time, Wu Jueqing stood up. He turned to Chu Yang. Chu Yang suddenly felt that the current Wu Jueqing seemed to be different from the previous him. He was completely different. But exactly what was different, he couldn't tell at the moment. Wu Jueqing's body was straight and sharp like a sword. It was as if a divine sword had been unsheathed, unstoppable. Then, he asked softly, "As long as I rush up to the heavenly palace, I can also find the extraterrestrial demons, right?" Chu Yang nodded and said, "Yes. But you have to think clearly. Even with your cultivation, even if you can reach the purple cloud heavens, you won't be a match for an ordinary extraterrestrial demon." Wu Jueqing nodded. The reason why Boss made such a choice is because after the brothers go over and reconstruct their physical bodies and attain the immortal golden body, their strength will increase tremendously and they will become experts strong enough to contend against the extraterrestrial demons, right? Chu Yang nodded and said, "That should be the case." Wu Jueqing said, "That must be the case. Otherwise, How would Boss let his brothers take the risk? And why would he allow his brothers to take risks without his leadership? Chu Yang said, that is indeed the case. He thought to himself that if it were him, if he wasn't sure of this, he would definitely not let Jiu Duxing and the others take the risk and die. If he wasn't quite confident, he would definitely not do something like this. The conclusion is, those who ascend to the heavenly palace through normal means are definitely far less powerful than they were in the past. Other than courting death, it's completely meaningless. Wu Jueqing's eyes flashed. He scolded, those bastards. Their cultivation must be several times higher than mine now. I have to make the most of my cultivation now. Otherwise, I'll really be an embarrassment to Boss. Chu Yang nodded and said, that's right. Wu Jueqing smiled and then turned around, staring at the cliff that he had carved the words on for a long time. His lips trembled, but he didn't say anything in the end. Elder Wu. Chu Yang said with some difficulty. What is it? Wu Jueqing didn't even turn his head, still staring at the stone wall. About today. This matter. I hope you can keep it a secret for me. Chu Yang said softly. Wu Jueqing's body shook and he slowly turned around. He looked at Chu Yang with a complicated gaze. Oh right, you are also the Tribulation Sword Master. Do you want it too? Chu Yang said lightly, right now, everything is still uncertain. I can't be sure whether or not I've really met the requirements of the Calamity Sword selection. When the time comes, I'll be the one who's chosen. If I don't meet the requirements... A trace of respect appeared in Wu Jueqing's eyes. He nodded slowly. All right. I promise you, no one else will know about today's matter. Chu Yang smiled. Thank you. Wu Jueqing looked up at the sky and sighed. I should be the one thanking you. Everyone knows that Tribulation's feelings are earth-shattering, but who knows that the feelings of a sword master are even more frightening. Just this one request of yours today shows that you are indeed the Tribulation Sword Master. Chu Yang smiled lightly. Elder Wu, if you were the Sword Master, wouldn't you? After a moment of pride, Wu Jueqing became dejected. Yes, I would too. He looked at the stone wall again reluctantly and said softly, Boss, I'm going back to practice now. I want to rush up the Heavenly Imperial Court as soon as possible to find our brothers and kill all the extraterrestrial demons. Finally, he turned and strode away. He didn't look back. Chu Yang smiled and naturally followed him. He suddenly felt that with his and his brother's strength, they really should speed up a little. According to their current progress, the day of rushing up the Heavenly Imperial Court was really not far away. When that time came, the pressure would be 100 times greater than now, right? It was best to meet the standards. The lives of his brothers were important, but so was his own. Even if he didn't care about his life, what about the women behind him? If he couldn't come back, what would happen to them? Therefore, doing his best to meet the standards of the Calamity Sword was the right path. The right path was full of vicissitudes. An old man and a young man, one in front and one behind, strolled in the snow. All around them, the fierce storm stirred up by Wu Jueqing's roar just now had just subsided. Snow and dust covered the sky. Their feet made soft sounds as they stepped on the snow. The two of them actually had a strange feeling of empathy for each other, even as if they were connected by blood and flesh. One was the sword master of the Calamity Sword after 40,000 years. The other was one of the calamities from 40,000 years ago, but at this moment, both of them felt that what the other was thinking was definitely the same as what they were thinking. Just like when they were together with their brothers, that kind of heartfelt relief and comfort. The look in Wu Jueqing's eyes became even more profound. As he walked, he chanted softly, back then, we sang and roared together, rode our horses in the martial world together, went through fire and water together, went through fire and knives together. When my brother was in trouble, I drew my sword and went. When my brother was in trouble, I wouldn't turn back. With my brothers by my side, I am invincible. As he chanted, the familiar faces and figures of his brothers floated past his eyes one by one. They were so familiar and clear, just like 40,000 years ago. Wu Jueqing's face was full of tears, but he suddenly burst into laughter. His laughter was indescribably sad. Chu Yang suddenly realized that in the midst of his laughter, Wu Jueqing's hair, which had been as black as ink for tens of thousands of years, was actually slowly turning white at a speed visible to the naked eye. Boss. My boss. Wu Jueqing sighed softly. The wind and snow were like weeping and complaining. Chapter 1476. Along the way, Chu Yang and Wu Jueqing didn't speak. They walked into the cave one after the other. Dong Wushang stood at the entrance of the cave with his saber. What happened just now? Did we encounter an enemy? Chu Yang smiled. Of course not. Elder Wu was cultivating just now. That roar was shocking enough, wasn't it? Dong Wushang understood at once. Oh, I see. Elder Wu is indeed an expert. That roar just now wasn't just shocking. It's a legend. A roar collapsed more than 30 mountains. Wu Jueqing glared at him and walked straight into his own cave to rest. Mo Lei pinched Dong Wushang's waist hard. Dong Wushang hissed in pain and said angrily, "Woman, what are you doing? You're rebelling." Mo Lei held her forehead and sighed. What kind of person is this? Can't you just tell me where the reinforcements have gone? If you're smarter, you're obviously going out for something big. Can't you see that old Master Wu Jueqing's eyes are red and he looks like he's been crying? Even his hair has turned white. To make such an old monster cry and have his hair turn white instantly, what kind of soul-wrenching matter must it be? How can it be a small matter? Yet you're still here chattering away. It's really rare to see such a person who doesn't know how to read people's expressions. Dong Wushang was still puzzled. He asked, "Tell me, why did you pinch me?" Mo Lei was even more furious. She didn't say anything. She turned around and walked into the cave. Dong Wushang turned his head around and asked Chu Yang, "Look. Women are too hard to please." Minister Chu rolled his eyes and said, "Have you ever seen a pig?" Dong Wushang was stunned. "Yes." "Oh, so you've seen one. You've seen one since you were young, right? You know what they look like since you were young, right?" Chu Yang asked with a smile. Dong Wushang was displeased. "Of course. Who hasn't seen a pig? That's good. If you haven't seen one, then no one else has." Minister Chu turned and left. Dong Wushang was stunned. He scratched his head and didn't understand. What the fuck? What does this mean? Chapter 771, where the reinforcements have gone. What the fuck? What does this mean? What is boss talking about? Hey! What's the meaning of this? Dong Wushang was confused as he said angrily, "Don't go." Mo Lei rushed out of the cave, grabbed Dong Wushang's ear and dragged him inside. She scolded, "You pig." Wu Jueqing became completely silent. Every day, he would cultivate and expel the poison in his body in a manner that was almost as if he was risking his life. He would do everything he could to recover and increase his skills. It was as if cultivating and expelling the poison were the purpose of his life from now on. Only when he was resting, when his energy was severely overdrawn, would he quietly watch Chu Yang and Dong Wushang play around while practicing martial arts. Only when they have whiskers. There would be a warm smile at the corner of his mouth, but his eyes would be even more distant and empty. He was looking at Chu Yang and Dong Wushang, but in his heart, he was thinking of his brothers. Even when Chu Yang and Dong Wushang occasionally went out to coordinate with Mo Tianji's actions, Wu Jueqing still only watched, neither interfering nor speaking. He just watched coldly from the sidelines. Every time, Jimo's strange cry, Luo Kedi's wolf howl, and Ao Sheyun's dragon roar could be heard from afar. Rui Butong's phoenix cry, Jiu Duxing's cold rebuke, Xie Danqiong's long howl, every time this happened. Chu Yang and Dong Wushang's faces would always glow with a comforting smile that came from the bottom of their hearts. It was also at this time that the intense envy and memories in Wu Jueqing's eyes lingered for a long time. They are brothers. I have such brothers too. It's just that they are not by my side now. But even if they are not by my side, when I see such a scene, I will still be moved, still feel touched, still feel warm. I believe that we will eventually be able to meet again. We definitely can. If I cannot bring the truth about boss to my brothers, I, Wu Jueqing, will not be able to die in peace. No, I cannot die. Even if I die, I have to wait until the truth is revealed to my brothers and fulfill boss's wish. Diwu Qingru naturally did not idle around in these 2 months. He organized a total of 40 attacks. A total of 40 battles, big and small. Mo Tianji was not flustered at all. He met each move with equal harshness. As the battle between the two heated up in this round, their individual prestige also grew higher and higher. They were like the sun, and their words were the law. Their respective teams also became more and more elite because of this baptism. Battle after battle, elimination of the weak and survival of the weak, it was very difficult even if they did not want to be elite. In fact, those who were not elite had no survival space and value at all. The law of the jungle, survival of the fittest, was vividly displayed in front of their eyes at this moment. On Diwu Qingru's side, those who died were not just the weak. There were also many strong ones. 13 supreme martial artists of 2nd grade and above were killed by Diwu Qingru in these few battles. These were all people that Diwu Qingru could not control or had no way to control. Mo Tianji naturally would not be polite with such a big gift. As long as it was delivered to his door, he would fulfill Diwu Qingru's wish. Diwu Qingru's attacks became crazier and crazier. Especially the last 3 attacks, the attacks were so powerful that they were really like a tsunami. It was almost wave after wave, each stronger than the last. The strength of the Li clan was almost completely unmatched. It was only by relying on Mo Tianji's ingenious calculations that they could escape from death time and time again and not be defeated. However, the gap between the real strength of the two sides was definitely not something that could be made up with just ingenious calculations. During this period of time, other than the core area of the Li clan, the important strongholds in the periphery were lost bit by bit. Now, almost all of them had fallen. The Li clan, which once dominated a vast area with a radius of tens of thousands of miles, now could not move more than a radius of 3,000 miles. This area was definitely not small. If it was in the lower 3 heavens, it was more than enough to hold a battle between the armies of 2 countries. However, on this supreme-level battlefield where one could advance and retreat dozens of miles in an instant, it seemed so narrow. Mo Tianji's repeated attacks, repeated victories, and repeated tacit cooperation had slowly changed Diwu Qingru's initial high regard for Mo Tianji. Then, it had changed to admiration, and now, it had reached the point of respect. All of Mo Tianji's responses and arrangements were extremely safe and thorough. It could really be said that not a single drop of water could leak out. It was difficult for him to gain much of an advantage. Although Mo Tianji had never really gained any advantage over him, Diwu Qingru was well aware of how big the advantage on his side was. He had endless backup on his side, while Mo Tianji had almost no backup on his side. The result of the gap in strength between the two sides was that Mo Tianji would inevitably suffer more than him in every operation. He would have to think many more steps before he could deal with the unexpected situation on his side or suddenly increase the number of troops. Otherwise, the situation would easily collapse and there would be the danger of total failure. In terms of planning and confidence, he still had the advantage. It was also not a small advantage. However, even in the face of such a bad situation, Mo Tianji still managed to stabilize the situation, causing him to be unable to turn his advantage into an absolute victory. This caused Diwu Qingru to be unable to carry out his wishful thinking. He originally wanted to go on like this and then gain an overall victory based on the strength that he had gathered. When he felt that it was enough, he would have a decisive battle and completely devour everything, including the tribulation. However, Mo Tianji never gave him such a chance. He didn't leave any room for this aspect. This was what Diwu Qingru admired the most. With a small sacrifice, Mo Tianji had allowed the Li clan, which should have collapsed completely 2 months ago and been completely annihilated, to struggle at death's door until now. No, to really use the word struggling at death's door to describe the Li clan was really not worthy of that impregnable defense. And all of this was because of Mo Tianji. In between, there were a few times when reinforcements arrived. Diwu Qingru immediately started to move and started to practice on the battlefield. On Mo Tianji's side, except for the first time due to some unexpected factors, he actually handled the other times flawlessly. He attacked and defended without the slightest bit of chaos. Moreover, every time he attacked, he could attack his own side's weakness. He was weak against strong and restrained the army. As for the traps that Diwu Qingru carefully set, Mo Tianji's side actually didn't step into them even once. Diwu Qingru asked himself, if he was in Mo Tianji's position, he definitely wouldn't be able to do better than Mo Tianji. In fact, he might even have overlooked something. Therefore, in the face of such an opponent, for the first time in his life, Diwu Qingru had such a degree of admiration and respect for someone other than himself. The opponent's military advisor is really sharp. I rarely admire people who play tricks, but for this person, I have to write the word respect to him. Yi Xiaoyaro on the side and said with some respect and admiration. In the last battle, he was completely tricked by Mo Tianji. He was besieged by 3 8th grade supreme martial artists and almost couldn't make it back. He couldn't even participate in this attack. Very sharp indeed. Diwu Qingru nodded slightly and said lightly, Elder Yi, you can't just see the opponent's military advisor's power. What you really need to see is the power of tribulation and the tribulation swordmaster, especially their bottomless potential. Yi Xiaoyaro was frightened and said, yes, indeed. This time, we're facing tribulation's military advisor and a few other people from the land of tribulation. Tribulation is not complete, and it can be said that it hasn't formed yet. However, it can only rely on a half-dead Li clan to block the allied forces of the 8 great clans and the law enforcement officers. If tribulation's wings are really complete, what will the result be? Diwu Qingru asked lightly. By then, the living space of the 8 great clans. Haha, Yi Xiaoyao's head was full of sweat and he was speechless for a long time. Also, this time, basically, it's only tribulation's military advisor who is dealing with us. The others are just playing a role of cooperation. And the most important thing is, Diwu Qingru's voice was a bit heavy, the tribulation sword master didn't take action. Chapter 1477. Diwu Qingru said in a soft voice. Chu Yang's face slowly emerged in his mind as he said these words. It was very clear. Chu Yang's sharp gaze seemed to have transcended time and space. It was swift and fierce. He couldn't help but think of the battle in the lower 3 heavens. This is the biggest hidden worry. The most fundamental hidden worry. Diwu Qingru smiled bitterly. Compared to the backup plan of the 8 great clans and the law enforcement officers, the hidden backup plan of the other party is the most terrifying one. It may also be the most fatal one. Yi Xiaoyaro gasped. The sword master didn't make a move. Diwu Qingru smiled. This time, it's actually the sword master who's training the think tank. Force them to unleash their greatest potential, and use our huge team and pressure as a whetstone to train the ability of the mastermind in Book 7, Chapter 772. 2 unforeseen calamities. Why would he make a move? Whetstone. Even with the composure of an 8th grade supreme martial artist, Yi Xiaoyaro was also stunned at this moment. There's such a thing. The think tank of the other party can be said to be the most powerful opponent I've ever met in my life. The most terrifying opponent. Diwu Qingru said lightly, in terms of planning and scheming, he's already at the peak of the wise. If I were in his position, I might not be able to do it. Such an enemy deserves respect. We need to destroy him with all our might. Yi Xiaoyaro gritted his teeth and said, such a person is the think tank of the tribulation. Admiration is one thing, but the standpoint is another. We can't allow him to live in this world. If we catch him, we don't need to waste any words. We can just behead him and cut his body into pieces. We can ensure that his spirit is destroyed and his beyond redemption. In this way, we can eliminate all future troubles once and for all. Diwu Qingru's gaze froze. Then, he smiled and said, that's right. But in his heart, he thought, is this the common understanding of the big clans? For example, Mo Tianji is a great threat that can't be left alive. But what about me, Diwu Qingru? In the hearts of the masters of the big clans, am I a great threat to all of you? If Mo Tianji is killed by me one day in the 7th part of Chapter 772, wouldn't you kill me without giving me the slightest chance? Will you let me be beyond redemption and get rid of me once and for all? His heart was in turmoil. His expression didn't change as he suddenly changed the topic and asked, "How many Alliance reinforcements have arrived so far?" "Only the law enforcement officers and the Ling and Xiao families haven't arrived yet. The Xiao family is the furthest away, so it's not an accident that they can't make it in time. However, the Ling family was so close, so why hadn't they arrived yet? Most importantly, the law enforcement officers should have arrived a long time ago, but they still haven't arrived." Yi Xiaoyaro frowned. Diwu Qingru was also somewhat puzzled about this matter. That's right, this was something that absolutely shouldn't have happened. There was no reason at all. Logically speaking, there shouldn't be any extra reinforcements on the Li clan's side. Those two groups of people shouldn't have been held back. Why did such a situation happen? One was the closest team. One was the most powerful team. It was indeed strange that these two teams had not arrived yet. There was also the Xiao clan. Even though they were too far away, it wasn't to the extent that there was no news of them at all. This might be a hidden worry. In the northeast direction. In a place where the wind and snow had yet to dissipate. The wind and snow had yet to stop, but all one could see was red. Corpses were scattered all over the ground, all dressed in white and with long swords at their waists. However, at this moment, the white clothes and the snow. They were all stained red with blood. Saint King, there were a total of 132 people here. None of them were left alive. They have all been killed. An old man dressed in hemp clothes knelt at the feet of a person with a face full of piety. He reported cautiously, "Saint King, what should we do next? How are the casualties on our side?" Tan Tan, dressed in black, raised his nose and asked. 84 people died, and 140 were injured. The old man's voice was somewhat sorrowful. The opponent's last self-explosion was extremely powerful and abrupt. Everyone couldn't react in time, so, Tan Tan snorted and said, "It came abruptly? Couldn't react in time? Nonsense. The self-explosion of a supreme martial artist is the last desperate move. As the saying goes, a cornered beast will still fight. Since you are in a desperate situation and have no hope of survival, how can you not fight for your own capital? Could it be that after so many years, you have forgotten these most basic but also the most fatal taboos? You still want to swarm around at the last moment? You are simply bastards. A bunch of bastards who are looking for trouble for themselves." The Demon King showed his power, and his anger instantly reached the sky. Yes. Everyone at the side knelt down in fear at the same time. "We didn't expect. Let's bury the dead nearby. Remember not to leave any traces. Cremate them." Tan Tan said sternly, "The next time this kind of mistake occurs, one by one, just kill yourselves. It is really meaningless to bring idiots like you who haven't improved at all to roam the world." "Yes, yes." Everyone prostrated on the ground, not even daring to breathe. "For the next step, we will move 1,500 miles stealthily. When we are almost there, we will stay put." Tan Tan snorted. "When the Li clan is completely gone, we will move. We can fight to the death for our brothers, but for the Li clan, it is completely unnecessary. They are not worthy. Do you understand? Do you want me to explain it more clearly?" "Understood." This subordinate understands completely. At this moment, a beautiful girl suddenly came out from the side. She was wearing a watery green dress. She hugged Tan Tan's arm and said, "Idiot, are you not done yet? Are you still not eating? I have already prepared the crystal cause for you." The dignified Saint King collapsed in an instant. Tan Tan changed his fierce look and said with a salivating face, "Wife, do you have red braised meat to eat?" "You still want to eat red braised meat?" Xie Danfeng said fiercely, "Come with me." She turned around and left. Tan Tan followed behind eagerly. The two figures disappeared in the wind and snow in an instant. The few divine clan elders who were about to stand up heard the Saint King's voice faintly in the wind and snow. "Hee. Wife, look. After this big battle, your husband has become more handsome, hasn't he? Get lost." A clear sword-like rebuke resounded. All the elders let out a pu sound. They were so shocked by this that their knees, which had just been raised, fell back down again. It was too shocking, handsome, even more handsome. They really couldn't understand why a character like the Saint King would keep harping on this issue. On the other side, the combat power of the law enforcement officers was beyond their expectations. Logically, they were met with strong resistance, because they were the ones who asked for it. For the reinforcement operation this time, the law enforcement officers mobilized the combat power of 4 halls. Everyone was to gather at the Yi clan's territory within a limited time and then head to the northwest together. These 4 halls included Lang Ilang's interrogation hall. All the officers had taken the initiative to request and strongly requested to avenge their boss this time. Only then were they agreed. At this moment, the forces of the 4 halls had already set up tents outside the Yi clan's territory and waited for a long time. However, the main force from the law enforcement city still hadn't arrived. The people of the 4 halls were all waiting anxiously. They didn't know what had happened to the main force. The law enforcement officers were known for their strict adherence to orders. They wouldn't allow even a moment's delay, let alone an entire month's delay. After the main force of the law enforcement officers left the law enforcement city, they immediately rushed forward at full speed. However, when they reached the vicinity of the boundless forest that they had to pass through, everyone stopped in their tracks at the same time. Everyone in the team this time was an expert. Their spiritual perception made everyone feel that something was amiss. This place happened to be right between the law enforcement city and the Yi clan's territory. In other words, it was a place that cut across these 2 places. To put it in simpler terms, it was a place where the heavens folded, just like the Black Blood Forest. This boundless forest had long become the training area for the law enforcement officers. Almost all the high-level spirit beasts inside had been slaughtered, and the indigenous forces had long been completely wiped out. If not for the fact that the environment here was too harsh, the headquarters of the law enforcement officers had even planned to set up a branch here. Almost all the law enforcement officers would go back and forth a few times every month or so. It could be said that they were extremely familiar with this place. Even if they walked with their eyes closed, they probably wouldn't make a mistake. However, when everyone arrived here, they unexpectedly discovered that this forest seemed to have changed. Although it wasn't obvious, the law enforcement officers who were all too familiar with this place were still able to discern it with their sharp senses. This phenomenon made everyone feel astonished. The high priest, Miao Zhendong, who led the team, had the highest cultivation in this team. He was the first to discover the abnormality. He frowned and waved his hand. The entire team stopped. Have you all discovered that this place is different from before? Miao Zhendong's voice was very deep and slow. As he spoke, he looked around cautiously. It's indeed a little different. Another person said, but I can't tell exactly what's different. Trash. Do you have eyes just to cry at a funeral? The high priest scolded, look carefully at your feet. What's that? That person secretly grimaced after being scolded. When he looked down, he was still confused. It's a road. Oh, no, it's a grassland. But what's wrong with it? Isn't it still the same as before? Pooh, talking to a trash whose brain is full of muscles like you will really lower my IQ for 3 years. You still have the cheek to say that everything is the same. Miao Zhendong was speechless. He said angrily, same? Is it really the same as before? Grassland. Is there anything wrong with grassland? You bastard, ever since we, the law enforcement officers, opened up such a big road in the boundless forest, we have long separated this road. The vitality of the earth veins has long been cut off. In these tens of thousands of years, has there ever been a blade of grass growing on this road? Now it has become a grassland. How dare you say that there's nothing wrong with it? Chapter 1478. Miao Zhendong held his forehead with one hand and sighed. He was completely at his wit's end and did not even bother to say anything. What else could you do to such a thick-skinned troublemaker? If he scolded him, he would not be angry, but he would be angered to death. If he really beat him up, his skin was rough and his flesh was thick. If he hit him lightly, he would just smile at him foolishly. If he hit him too hard, he would be even more annoying. Something is indeed wrong. Another consecrator in the group frowned and said, "This old man had just passed by here last month." At that time, although the forest on both sides of the road was lush, there was still not an inch of grass on the road. But now, it's all inexplicably turned into grass. Also, I don't know if you have noticed, but the trees on both sides of the forest seem to have grown taller. This place was originally just an ordinary green forest, and its 773 chapters were all caused by greed, first update. But now, it is almost dark green. This is clearly a sign of rapid growth due to the abundant nutrients. That's right. Look over there, the trunks of those trees look like they are about to die. But the tops of the trees are still lush and green. This defies common sense. Originally, we could see the blue sky when we opened the road. But now, it is completely blocked by the branches and trees. There are some places where we can't even see a trace of sunlight. This matter is very strange. That consecrator said, "Big brother, we are still at the entrance. We have no idea what is happening inside. This place is so strange. As the saying goes, the less trouble the better. And the war in the northwest is in full swing. The front line is urgently calling for reinforcements. Why don't we take a detour and avoid this place? When the matter over there is over and we come back from the other side, we can figure it out. What do you think?" The consecrator shook his head and sneered, "It is just some strangely growing plants, and it is enough to scare all of you." Strange? How is it strange? Although what was in front of his eyes was somewhat unusual, it was not to the extent of being described as strange. At most, it was due to some factors that caused these plants to have a will of plants. Chapter 773. The disaster caused by greed. A large amount of vitality was obtained from the outside, which led to the scene before us. I feel that this is actually an opportunity. Perhaps some kind of heavenly treasure was accidentally born here, or perhaps some kind of spiritual spring appeared somewhere. This might not be impossible, right? These things can cause such an effect, right? If it's really as I've guessed, by the time we return from the northwest, the dishes will have already gone cold. Even if we eat shit, we won't be able to catch up to the hot ones. Won't we regret it for the rest of our lives? Besides, even if there are no treasures, spirit springs, or even some dangers inside, with the strength of the 70 supreme martial artists here, what do we have to fear? Can the unknown road ahead really delay us that much? But what about taking a detour? That would take at least 10 days longer than the original journey. I believe everyone knows how to choose. Everyone chimed in. High Priest's words make sense. In fact, everyone was also curious. From the looks of it, something mysterious must have happened. The possibility of the heavenly materials and earthly treasures, and the spiritual spring gushing out of the ground was quite high. Even if it wasn't 100%, it was close to the probability. It really occupied more than 10%. Otherwise, such a strange thing wouldn't have happened. This was practically a miracle. It couldn't be that some demon had suddenly become benevolent and released an unlimited amount of vitality, allowing the forest to grow and develop, right? That was practically bullshit. Besides, even if there were peak-level supreme martial artists in the entire continent, even if they could move mountains and fill seas, who could make the entire Baidu world-defying heavens bar forest grow and develop? Wasn't this just a dream? Taking a step back, if they really found the heavenly materials and earthly treasures, everyone who saw them would have a share. Even if they were just following and couldn't eat the meat, they could at least drink the soup, right? Even if they couldn't even drink the soup, the high priest would definitely have to express his gratitude, right? No matter what, this was something that would definitely be profitable. Taking another step back, even if there weren't any heavenly materials and earthly treasures inside, and instead there were demons and evil beasts, they had 80 supreme martial artists here. What kind of danger couldn't they deal with? Did they really think that the law enforcers were made of mud? At most, they would just have to spend a little more energy. Those who were able to reach the level of supreme martial artists were all shrewd people. Thus, everyone's thoughts changed, and they immediately supported the high priest's greed. Another high priest sighed and said, "Since everyone has unanimously decided, let's proceed along this path. It's just that everyone has to be more careful. It's better to be safe than sorry." Everyone agreed loudly, and then they rushed in while laughing. There were 80 supreme martial artists here. What kind of danger couldn't they deal with? However, if there was really a danger that could threaten the supreme martial artists, was there any use in being careful? In the vast forest, Dukyu sat beside a spring, closing his eyes and circulating his energy. This place was filled with a kind of pure green spiritual energy of heaven and earth. To Dukyu's elf bloodline, it was really an extremely good tonic. Especially this kind of tonic, it was almost inexhaustible. The unexpected harvest here made Dukyu full of joy. As for the changes in this vast forest, it was naturally caused by the arrival of Dukyu, a pure elf. In this world, perhaps there really wasn't any peak-level supreme martial artist who could make flowers and trees wither in an instant. This was the basic knowledge of the entire continent. However, this knowledge definitely didn't apply to the elf race. The elf race was a living creature that was born with the ability to communicate with plants. Even an ordinary elf could make trees and flowers flourish, let alone a top-grade elf like Dukyu who had such a high-level elf royal bloodline. Especially a royal bloodline elf who had the cultivation of a high-level supreme martial artist. It was completely reasonable for a top-grade elf like Dukyu to cause such a change in the vast forest. There was no accident at all. It was just that those 80 supreme martial artists didn't know, not at all. After all, the elf race had already left the continent for 100,000 years. This was really too far away for humans who could forget a lot of things in 3 to 5 years. Thus, an accident occurred. Originally, after coming to the upper 3 heavens through the heaven passage, Dukyu had long wanted to look for Chu Yang to complete the spring of life. Dukyu was simply drooling over Chu Yang's holy spirit spring. It was just that that guy liked to hide the good stuff and wasn't generous at all. If Dukyu had known about it before the two of them broke up the last time they were together, he definitely wouldn't have left Chu Yang's side. Thinking of this, Dukyu cursed that stingy guy in his heart. He clearly knew that it was very useful to me, yet he gave me so little. The next time I see him, I'll beat him into a pig's head and then torture him to snatch it. However, his elven bloodline had already been fully opened, and all the elven inheritance had already returned to him. This unforeseen event had caused him to immediately receive a special response from his elven bloodline after he had entered the upper 3 heavens. This was even more pleasantly surprised than the Holy Spirit spring. Dukyu was so pleasantly surprised that he almost fainted. In the beginning, he thought that there were still people of the same race in the upper 3 heavens. Driven by his great joy, and coupled with the urgent summons of the unique bloodline of the elves, Dukyu felt uneasy. Therefore, he dispelled the idea of immediately changing his original plan. Instead, he changed his original route and followed the elves' summons. But after arriving here, he realized that there were no elves in the upper 3 heavens. There wasn't even a trace of the elf race. As for the source of the elf bloodline, it came from underground. After a long period of judgment, analysis, and research, Dukyu finally confirmed that what was buried at an unknown depth underground should be the city of elves from the ancient time. Back when the heavens collapsed, the elven race's mighty figures had exhausted all means to preserve a trace of their bloodline inheritance, preventing the city of elves from being completely annihilated. However, although the entire city of elves was complete, it was ultimately annihilated and sunk into the ground due to the changes of time. The members of the elf race could only develop and advance quickly in the city of elves and become the top existence in the world. And although this vast forest didn't have the ability to activate the city of elves, it still emitted a special spiritual energy day and night because of the existence of the city of elves. This kind of spiritual energy didn't have much effect on other races and races other than the elf race. At most, they would think that the air here was fresher. But to the elves, it was a rare blessing. Especially now, the elf chi that had been emitting for more than 100,000 years had been stored here. To Dukyu now, it was equivalent to a natural and completely defenseless huge treasure trove. Dukyu didn't dare to touch the underground city of elves for the time being. He didn't know anything about the situation below. After all, it was something from 100,000 years ago. If he wasn't careful and an accident happened, he was afraid that his excavation would cause the city of elves, which had been holding up for 100,000 years, to collapse. That would be terrible. Where would he find medicine for regret? At least, he had to fulfill that condition before he could try to activate it completely. The condition was simple. That was to pour the spring of life into the spring. After the spring of life seeped down, the underground city of elves would absorb the vitality of the spring of life and recover its vitality. Only then would there be a chance for the city of elves to see the light of day again. If he really dug rashly, the moment he dug it out would be the moment of destruction. Duke, who understood all the key points, didn't dare to act rashly. This was the last ruin of the elf race. Once there was a mistake, he would be the sinner of the entire elf race. Therefore, since the day Wei Gong arrived here, he had been cultivating day and night to improve his cultivation. In these few days, he had absorbed a huge amount of fairy energy. Even Wei Gong himself couldn't estimate how much fairy energy he had absorbed. However, the amount of fairy energy that flowed out of this place was already enormous. Once he finished absorbing all of it, it was hard to say how much fairy energy he would be able to improve his cultivation to. He believed that it would be very exciting. It was just that it had only been half a year since he came here, and Duke already felt that his cultivation had steadily improved to the peak of 8th grade Supreme Martial Artist. It seemed that he was only a step away from 2nd grade Supreme Martial Artist. He could make another breakthrough at any time. And today was the crucial moment for him to break through to 2nd grade Supreme Martial Artist. Chapter 1479. Duke sat cross-legged with his palms facing the sky. He could clearly feel the massive amount of spiritual energy gushing into his body from the top of his head. It was instantly absorbed by him. Then, the top of his head turned into a vacuum, which was then filled up by the spiritual energy from all directions. Then, he absorbed it again. Such a cycle was truly an endless stream, without any end. The next moment, Duke acutely sensed that his dantian had been completely filled up by the spiritual energy. Without any hesitation, he started to break through. The cultivation in his dantian instantly turned into a sharp arrow, rushing toward the middle stage Supreme Martial Artist barrier, intending to finish it in one go. But what he didn't expect was that at this critical moment, an accident happened. What the heck? This place has really changed a lot. A law enforcement officer casually waved his palm. Wherever the wind from his palm passed, all the branches, roots, vines, and other obstacles in the way were all removed. He shouted loudly, "The scene here is really quite unbelievable. The tree roots, vines, and other things seem to have spontaneously emerged to block the way. It has only been a few months since I last came here. How can it grow so fast? If there isn't some kind of treasure to help the plants grow, I won't believe it even if I'm beaten to death." Another person nodded in agreement. With a casual wave of his palm, he had already cleared out the dense tree branches that had completely covered the sky. He said, "Isn't that so? It's really strange. Right, I've heard that those heavenly treasures all have their own spirituality. They might not necessarily appear there. One moment, they might be in the northeast, but the next moment, they feel that the southwest is better. I'm thinking that the supernatural events here might be caused by such movement. Otherwise, how could such a shocking scene happen in such a short period of time? Not bad, not bad. It makes a lot of sense. Brother Wang is indeed knowledgeable. Of course, I think that to have such high speed, it must be a top-grade heavenly treasure. With such spirituality, I reckon that such a heavenly treasure might already have a human form. Or even that this heavenly treasure might already have a spirit. This is highly possible." Everyone discussed as they moved forward quickly. In the blink of an eye, they had already traveled dozens of miles. Wherever they passed, all the obstructing plants on the road were cleared away. Even the branches and trees above their heads were all swept away. The sky was clear, and sunlight shone in, filling the eyes with indescribable verdant greenery. Seeing the light of day again. The 80 Supreme Being experts were overjoyed. Duke was so angry that his nose was crooked. Previously, he had spent a lot of effort to cover the entire sky above the forest with trees. Furthermore, he had made the entire forest into a natural formation suitable for the elves to cultivate. Only in this way could he ensure that the elven aura would not leak out in the slightest. He wanted to make use of this geographical advantage to prepare to break through to the supreme martial artist level. Who would have thought that at the most crucial moment, an unexpected flaw would suddenly appear in this carefully prepared elven formation? A gap would appear in the sky above certain places for no apparent reason. As soon as the gap appeared, the fairy chi, which had been abnormally abundant and condensed in one place, immediately had more options and began to dissipate from the gap. And it was showing signs of getting faster and faster. This sudden turn of events almost caused Duke Yu's cultivation to go berserk on the spot. How could this be? I had clearly set it up very, very well previously. With the spiritual chi dissipating, the supply would naturally be lacking. This supreme grade breakthrough had ended without a start or end. Duke Yu was extremely depressed. He could not figure out where exactly had gone wrong. Just as he was about to go and check it out, he heard a voice from afar. Hey, Elder Meow, this time we are destined to be rich. Look at this scene, the treasure here is definitely not a small matter. An old man's voice was very reserved as he said, yes, as long as we find it, everyone will benefit. Now, all of you, cheer up. Don't let the treasure not recognize it in front of us. That would be too much of a pity. Ha ha. We are all experienced hunters here. How could a fox escape from the cracks of our fingers? That's right. Fuck, why are the trees above us still so dense? It seems like the further we go, the denser it gets. This is so damn depressing. Watch me sweep through an army of thousands and flatten it with one palm. Boom. Ha ha. Brother Lee's cultivation is indeed good. The power of one palm can sweep through 1,000 feet of the sky. Ha ha ha, Duke Yu's eyes were spitting fire. He was a genuine senior supreme grade expert. How could he not know what had gone wrong? Fuck him, it turned out that someone was sabotaging. Can't you fucking sabotage at any time? Do you have to interfere when I am about to succeed? What kind of deep hatred do I have with you for causing me to fail on the verge of success? Aren't you fucking bastards? If I don't chop these bastards into pieces, I will be letting down all the effort that I have wasted. And let down all the spiritual chi. Duke Yu stood up with a furious look on his face. His body emitted a tyrannical aura as he flew out like an arrow leaving the bow. He shot towards the direction of the sound like a lightning bolt. Miao Zhendong and the rest opened their divine senses as they rushed forward. They paid close attention, fearing that they would miss the trace of the treasure. As they moved forward, they could vaguely feel that some kind of mysterious feeling was getting closer and closer. Moreover, the speed of its approach was abnormally fast. In an instant, everyone became excited. The treasure must be right in front of them. Ha ha ha, it seems like it is taking the initiative to deliver itself to them. What is luck? Isn't this it? Keep quiet. Don't disturb the treasure. If the treasure is disturbed, it might run thousands of miles away. Then, all our efforts will be for naught. It would be boring if we fail at the last step. Miao Zhendong warned everyone seriously. Great Consecrator, do you think that this treasure is already a spirit? I have lived for so long. But I have never seen a treasure in human form before. A second-grade supreme grade martial artist said with some fascination. This is hard to say now. Miao Zhendong said cautiously, any heavenly material and earthly treasure that has taken the form of a human is something that can only be encountered by chance. It has always only existed in legends, and no one has ever seen it. I heard that only those with great luck can see it. But no one can say that it definitely doesn't exist, right? Don't we have such a chance today? Another person said. Yes, if it really is. Besides, looking at the situation here, how can ordinary treasures have such a function? We have encountered such a miraculous scene. Isn't this great luck? The previous person said. That's true. It is really great luck. Miao Zhendong was also a little excited. At this moment, a burst of rapid air-breaking sound came from afar. A voice that seemed to suppress the huge anger of the 3 rivers and 4 seas asked in a deep voice, "Who are all of you? Why are you here to ruin my good thing?" Everyone turned to look. Instantly, there was a burst of joyful exclamations. There was a person in front. This person was covered in green from head to toe. Even his hair was green. On his hair, there was a small flower that was slowly blooming. Although this person looked very angry, he still gave people a very refreshing feeling. There were even people with discerning eyes who noticed another incredible phenomenon. Following the appearance of this person in green, the flowers and trees at the side seemed to suddenly become excited. There were even a few stalks of grass that started to sprout green buds. What kind of situation was this? It was a miracle. What kind of thing could create such a shocking scene? It was great luck. Look, look, look. What the fuck? A supreme martial artist pointed at the grass under his feet excitedly. He was so excited that he stuttered, "Look, this grass. This grass. Grass. What the fuck?" Everyone lowered their heads to take a look. Instantly, exclamations of surprise filled the air. A total of 80 supreme martial artists shouted fuck at the same time. This was a truly shocking scene. This grass. What the fuck? What the fuck? This grass is really. What the fuck? Then, everyone looked up at the same time. They looked at the person in green in front of them with a gaze that was so hot that it could almost melt steel. They stared at him so hard that some people even started to drool. There was really a monster. And it was a completely human-shaped treasure. A monster. My God, I'm going to die from happiness. There's actually such a heaven-defying treasure in this world, and we've even encountered it. This is really a blessing from our ancestors' graves. This is the so-called great fate. What's the legendary? For a moment, everyone's eyes were focused on Duke Yu. They looked at him from head to toe again and again. Duke Yu came with a heart full of anger. He couldn't wait to swallow this bunch of bastards who spoiled his plans. However, he actually had goosebumps all over his body because of the focused gazes of these people. He felt as if he was a naked peerless beauty who had suddenly met a group of old bachelors who hadn't seen a woman for 80,000 years. They were all super hooligans. Their gazes were as if they wanted to swallow him alive. A chill ran down his spine. This supreme martial artist who had almost climbed to the peak actually. He couldn't help but take a step back. He said with uncertainty, "You guys, what do you want to do?" Wahahaha. A supreme martial artist laughed out loud with boundless pride. "Baby, what do we want to do? You asked us what we want to do. What do you think we want to do? What can we do?" Ha 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 ha. Duke Yu's hair instantly stood up. "Old man, did I meet a group of that thing? And it's a large group of that thing?" He said angrily. "You bastard, open your dog eyes and look carefully. Old man is a man. Man!" That supreme martial artist opened his eyes wide. He suddenly looked up to the sky and laughed. He was extremely happy. A man is even better. Old man likes you to be a man. Ha ha ha. Then I'll have one more piece. The other dozens of people laughed out loud. They were overjoyed. Not bad, not bad. This thing is really good. He can actually talk, scold people, and even call himself old man. This is really rare. Yes, yes. What's even more amazing is that he even knows that he's a man. He's quite smart. We're really lucky. If we didn't come here, how would we have met this man? We're really lucky. Yes, yes. Chapter 1480. Duke Yu slowly raised his eyebrows. If he was furious just now, he was furious now. Damn it, nothing is too strange in this world. Normally, it would be bad enough to meet one of them. Who would have thought that he would meet a group of them today? And they are all experts. Any one of them is a supreme martial artist. What the hell is going on? Could it be that the principle of birds of a feather flocking together and birds of a feather flocking together could be reflected in such a serious matter? This is too unimaginable. A group of men actually want to molest an old man? You are courting death. Duke Yu roared. His murderous aura instantly surged out. It was obvious that Duke Yu had the intention to kill. Ha ha ha. Courting death. A supreme martial artist laughed wildly. He grinned and said, "Yes, yes, an old man will die of happiness. You can make an old man die of happiness. I understand. Do you understand? Hee hee. This guy can actually get angry. He even has a murderous aura. It's quite a strong murderous aura. Damn. This is really good stuff. Miao Zhendong shouted, everyone, don't move. I have already said that I want to be the first to enjoy this man. That's right, that's right. The others echoed, of course we have to satisfy the head consecrator first, but we beg the head consecrator to leave some soup for us to taste. Dukyu was so angry that his whole body started to tremble. This is too disgusting. Why is this group of people more disgusting than the other? Who are they? One of them carefully took a step forward. He didn't know what he was thinking. His nose twitched violently and he took 2 deep breaths. Immediately, he had a satisfied look on his face. It smells so good. Everyone, smell it. His body smells really good. It's an indescribable fragrance. Oh, I'm so intoxicated. It's intoxicating. The others immediately felt as if they had discovered a new continent. They all twitched their noses. What kind of power was it when dozens of supreme martial artists took a deep breath together? In the blink of an eye, the area became a vacuum. Everyone who took a deep breath had an intoxicated look on their faces. It smells so good. TSK, TSK, TSK. I can't wait. Such a good thing only happens once every 10,000 years. How can there be such a fragrant smell? Nonsense. How can a fairy's body not be fragrant? Miao Zhendong shouted, surround them, don't let him escape. Yes. This time, it's really cool. We're going to have a good time. Hurry up and use your cultivation to solidify the ground. Don't let him drill into the ground. Not bad. Hurry up. Damn, everyone, look, the fragrance is even stronger now that this guy is angry. I'm going to get drunk again. This feels so good. That's right, it's actually a man. Ha ha ha, I wonder if this thing is tasty. Someone suddenly thought of something and looked fascinated. I really want to try it. Nonsense, who doesn't want to try it? That must be where the essence lies. Do you think you're worthy? Even if it's my turn, it won't be yours. Forget it, don't think about those useless things. That thing will definitely belong to the great consecrator alone. It's already good enough that we can get our hands on it. That's true, only the head consecrator has such good fortune. Sigh, just imagine that scene. Head consecrator's mouth. TSK, 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 that's right. I don't know how thick it will be. Those tree roots and vines outside just now were already very thick. I don't know if his ability to induce rebirth will work on himself. Everyone started to laugh lewdly for some unknown reason. The great consecrator Miao Zhendong's face turned red and he said angrily, a bunch of bastard. Always taking that kind of thing is like taking medicine. What nonsense are you talking about? What a scandal. That's right, eating that thing is like eating medicine. Yes, it's medicine, not that thing. That's not right, if it can really be reborn. Then wouldn't all of us have a chance to get it? Cut one and another one grows. Of course, the first round will definitely belong to the great consecrator. We'll be satisfied if we can make it to the second, third, or fourth round. Everyone chimed in. Let's not talk about those nonsense first. This thing seems to have a very high cultivation level. Everyone should be careful when dealing with it. The second consecrator reminded loudly. As he spoke, Dukyu's murderous aura became thicker and thicker. It had already reached an uncontrollable level. What the fuck? What kind of fucking perverts are you? It's already disgusting enough to play with it, and you actually want to eat my thing? You actually eat it like eating medicine? Why don't you fucking eat yours? All of you are courting death. Dukyu shouted angrily and flew up. The current situation was no longer a matter of whether they would let Dukyu go or not. On the contrary, Dukyu would definitely not let them go. Among these people, the ones with the highest cultivation level were the 2 old men in the lead. Their strength was basically the same as his, at the peak of 8th grade supreme martial artist. But don't forget that below this piece of land was the city of fairies. Above them was a vast forest that stretched for thousands of miles. This was Dukyu's absolute home ground. In such a place, Dukyu didn't have to worry about getting hurt at all. No matter how serious his injuries were, as long as he wasn't dismembered on the spot, he would be able to recover in a very short time. Even if a mid-grade supreme martial artist came, Dukyu was confident that he would definitely be able to fight and even win, not to mention these people in front of him. What the fuck? He's really angry. Someone shouted. Oh no, I don't know if his essence will leak out when he's angry. Someone made a look of pity and continued to daydream. Then where will it leak out from? Another person joined in the fun. While they were talking, Miao Zhendong had already flown up and took the lead, impatiently facing Dukyu in mid-air. Bang! 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 3 loud and muffled sounds were heard as the two of them were shot to the left and right like 2 sharp arrows. Miao Zhendong's trembling hands were almost numb. He shouted, "This thing's cultivation level is very high. It might not be lower than mine. Everyone, be careful." His voice had already become heavy and cautious. As the saying goes, once an expert makes a move, one will know whether he's an expert or not. Although it was just a move, Miao Zhendong already knew that the cultivation level of this human-shaped treasure in front of him was extraordinarily high. If he hadn't acted in time just now, even if those 2 fellows didn't die, at the very least, they would be injured. Even he himself was almost seriously injured because he underestimated the enemy just now. However, in addition to being surprised. But at the same time, there was also a kind of suppressed excitement. A human-shaped monster formed by a heavenly treasure could actually have such a cultivation level. Then, if he could swallow this treasure into his stomach, how would he be able to eat it? With that thought, the great consecrator felt so excited that he almost suffocated. His gaze was even more salivating as he looked at Dukyu's crotch. The essence of the treasure, there should be even more miraculous effects, right? If he could eat it. Wahahaha, too excited. This old man is really too excited. Damn, at such an old age, it wouldn't be strange even if he became an immortal on the spot. Everyone's reaction was more or less the same. After hearing this sentence, everyone's heart tightened. They were shocked by the strength of this human-shaped treasure. Then, they became even more excited and dizzy. It's actually a treasure that's so strong to such an extent. It's really a treasure, a rare treasure that I've never seen in my life. Besides, so what if this guy's strength is about the same as the great consecrators? There are so many of us here. Even if we were to pile him up, he would die. As Dukyu flew back, he opened his hands and a green brilliance surged. His 2 arms suddenly extended and grabbed 2 people on his left and right. As he retreated, he dragged them horizontally. As he roared, an unforeseen event occurred. All of a sudden, 2 masses of dark green energy rushed out from his 2 arms. In an instant, the surrounding flowers and trees suddenly grew at an astonishing speed that could be seen by the naked eye. Countless vines thickened by several times in an instant and became as hard as iron. Like an octopus from the bottom of the sea, they waved their tentacles and swept towards everyone. Countless tree roots suddenly flew out from the ground and wrapped around everyone. Even the grass on the ground suddenly sprouted countless branches and wrapped around everyone's legs. In an instant, the entire forest turned into a raging sea of green. The miraculous change in front of everyone's eyes made everyone dumbfounded. What a treasure! What a powerful treasure! Miao Zhendong's eyes shone with a divine light. His excitement had reached an extremely high level. He shouted with a trembling voice that seemed to be releasing all his emotions. A palm flew out and countless vines were shattered. However, more vines followed and wrapped around them. Behind the vines, Dukyu looked at them with a cold and stern gaze. He was expressionless, as if he was looking at a dead person. Beside him, there were already 2 corpses. They were the 2 people that he had casually grabbed and killed when he retreated. Another wave of green energy surged on his legs. Immediately, countless vines and tree roots rushed up and dragged the 2 bloody corpses into the ground, turning them into fertilizer. Dukyu's killing intent rose and he could no longer control it. For so many years, he was forced to hide in the upper 3 heavens by the great clans of the upper 3 heavens. For someone as arrogant as him, this was simply unbearable. However, he couldn't bear it anymore. He had to bear it. But now that he had finally recovered his former strength and found such a treasured land after coming up, he encountered such a group of perverts when he was about to achieve great thing. Such blasphemy was simply unbearable. Even if he could bear it, he couldn't bear it. Damn it. He was going to explode. With a shrill howl, Duke Yu's entire body flew out like a green lightning bolt. With a shake of his hand, a third-grade supreme martial artist's heavenly spirit was instantly shattered. The second high priest flew over from the side to rescue him. Duke Yu didn't want to get entangled in a fight with him. With a flying kick, he kicked the third-grade supreme martial artist who had just turned into a corpse, causing it to fall towards the second high priest. While the second high priest was dodging, Duke Yu's face was filled with rage and killing intent. He started a massacre again. 3 consecutive kicks were sent out at high speed. 3 supreme martial artists in front of him, left and right, let out loud screams at the same time. They flew up into the sky and spat out blood. They were barely breathing. Vines automatically flew out from the trees on both sides and grabbed the bodies of the 3 people in midair, pulling them to both sides at the same time. Chapter 1481. Hiss. The 3 of them were sliced into pieces in midair. Fresh blood poured down from the sky like a waterfall. Duke Yu let out a long howl, his body swayed continuously as he dodged at high speed. Suddenly, a sharp sword pierced towards his ribs from a strange angle. His entire body dodged slightly to the side, and that treasured sword seemed to have brushed past his muscles. Duke Yu's palm had already sent the head of the owner of the treasured sword flying. A saber came slashing towards Duke Yu's face. Duke Yu tilted his body and sent a flying kick towards the person's crotch. Ouch! A tragic cry rang out. It didn't sound like a human's voice at all. That person screamed miserably as he flew over Duke Yu's head with his blade. Duke Yu stretched out his hand, and by the time that person flew over his head, he had already been sliced into 2. Chapter 770, Duke Yu's Wrath, 4th update. Darling is very fierce. Everyone, be careful. Miao Zhendong shouted loudly. When the word baby entered his ears, Duke Yu became even more furious. Damn it, you are still talking about baby even at this point in time. Baby, your grandpa. With a flash of sword light, the long sword that was clamped under his ribs flew out. With a pu sound, it pierced through the body of an expert. The remaining strength of the sword didn't diminish as it brought the body of the expert flying backwards, crashing into a tree. The long sword was nailed to the tree. This person was already dead. His body was hanging on the sword and slowly slid down. As it slid down, his body was sliced into 2. Duke Yu's body flashed again and again. Sometimes he was in the east, sometimes he was in the west. Sometimes he was in the front, and sometimes he was in the right. In the blink of an eye, he had already circled around the entire arena. Behind him, at least 30 supreme martial artist experts had their eyes bulging out. Duke Yu wasn't completely unharmed. His body was also hit by 2 palms from one of the experts before he died. However, he didn't seem to have any reaction at all. It was as if he wasn't affected at all. It was only at this moment that the 2 consecrators who were leading the team turned pale with fright. They didn't expect this monster to be so fierce. With a whistle, everyone retreated. However, Duke Yu wasn't willing to let them go just like that. Part 7. The Fury of Duke Yu. Chase. Another 3 people turned into 3 clouds of blood mist in the process of retreating. Exactly half of the 80 experts were eliminated. There were 40 more. And all these changes happened in the short span of a few flicks of a finger. The ecstasy of discovering a human-shaped treasure in their hearts had yet to dissipate, but it had already turned into resentful spirit. No, it was more accurate to say that all the vengeful spirits were gone. Under the effect of Duke Yu's elven aura, the souls of those experts who had just died tragically were decomposed by the invisible green energy in the air, and turned into pure heaven and earth energy. The souls of these insufferably arrogant supreme being experts had all turned into great nourishment for the trees in this place. Although the bloody massacre had begun, the surrounding trees and plants acted as cleaners, burying all the corpses and mangled flesh as they appeared. Even the bloodstains were cleaned up. The surrounding flowering trees and bushes that could bear flowers bloomed beautifully, and in an instant, the fragrance of the flowers filled the air, and the smell of blood disappeared. As far as the eye could see, it was a beautiful garden with a myriad of colors, birdsong, and the fragrance of flowers. Was this the battlefield that had just devoured 40 experts? However, such a beautiful place was actually the most terrifying and horrifying place of slaughter. Miao Zhendong no longer had the playful look from before, and his expression was extremely solemn as he stared at Yu. Even though so many people had already died, the passion in the hearts of the remaining people had not diminished at all. Instead, it had surged even higher. This was a human-shaped treasure. The more powerful the treasure, the more powerful its effects would be. If they were to consume it, then, their cultivation? Wouldn't it be like rubbing? What was there to be afraid of when people died? If they died, it would mean that they were not capable enough. The more people who died, the better. The fewer people there were, the more they would be able to get, right? As the saying goes, greed blinds one's mind. Until now, this group of people still hadn't seen the situation in front of them, and hadn't been able to clearly judge the terrifying strength in front of them. The 40 people formed a semicircle around Duke Yu, and at the center of the encirclement was Duke Yu's tall figure. "Sir, what kind of thing are you?" Miao Zhendong's eyes were filled with fervor, and his pupils shrunk. He secretly gathered his strength and asked, "What kind of treasure are you? Transforming into a human?" Facing such a powerful human-shaped treasure, Miao Zhendong no longer dared to treat it lightly. Even the tone of his voice had risen from treasure to "sir." Duke Yu was startled, and said, "What? What did you say? What treasure? Transforming into a human? What are you talking about?" This group of people were very abnormal, and their strength was tyrannical. How could they speak so carelessly? I really don't know how they obtained their tyrannical cultivation. Miao Zhendong thought that the monster in front of him was putting on an act, and was trying to make him lower his guard. "So," he said indifferently, "although your figure and actions are no different from a human, how can you hide from this old man's discerning eyes? This old man has long seen that you are the incarnation of a monster. Tell me, what kind of thing are you?" Duke Yu was tongue-tied, and said angrily, "You're the monster. Your whole family is full of monsters. Always your grandpa. With those 2 dead fish eyes of yours, you still dare to call yourself discerning eyes? I think you're more like a chicken eye or a chicken eye." Miao Zhendong said calmly, "Your strength is not ordinary. Why do you have to lower yourself and hurt people with your words? However, it doesn't matter whether you admit it or not. Today's outcome has already been decided. I will definitely beat you back to your original form. Everyone, get ready." With a shua sound, all the experts took a step forward in unison, and assumed a battle stance. Duke Yu suddenly felt very conflicted in his heart. What kind of person is this? How dare he say that I hurt people with my words? If I had said something that hurt people, how badly would you hurt me? Why do I look like a monster? How am I putting on an act? Could it be that these people are actually treating me as a spirit? Heavenly treasure. I'm really fucking speechless. A bunch of idiots, just you wait, you old bastard on the other side. Open those chicken eyes of yours wide and look carefully. Is there a monster as handsome as me? Duke Yu was furious. Ha ha. Miao Zhendong's gaze was like a deep pool, and he still looked calm. Monsters will never admit that they are monsters. I don't want to argue with you anymore. When I beat you back to your original form, everything will be clear. Duke Yu was so angry that he almost vomited blood. This old bastard, just you wait. Let's see if I'll beat you up. There were still 2 8th grade supreme martial artists, 3 7th grade supreme martial artists, 7 9th grade supreme martial artists, 10 5th grade supreme martial artists, but only 3 4th grade supreme martial artists and 5 3rd grade supreme martial artists. The other 10 were all 2nd grade supreme martial artist. Those that he had killed just now seemed to be a glorious result, reducing the enemy's head by half. However, most of them were 2nd and 3rd grade supreme martial artists. The 2 strongest ones were only 4th grade supreme martial artists. This wasn't much of a loss to the enemy's high-end combat strength. This was also the real reason why the enemy didn't panic in the face of such a shocking change, and even had the confidence to turn the situation around. It seemed that the following tough battle could be expected. If it weren't for the trump card of exchanging injury for injury, the situation wouldn't have been optimistic for him. In fact, in terms of pure strength, although Jukyu had already reached the peak of 8th grade Supreme Martial Artist, the other party had 2 8th grade Supreme Martial Artists and a 7th grade Supreme Martial Artist, and many other high-grade Supreme Martial Artists as support. The encirclement had already been formed, and even if he wanted to escape, it would be a difficult matter. However, this was the home ground of the fairies, and Jukyu was a top-notch royal fairy, but for both sides, this was an unimaginable battle. Jukyu was innocent, and the enemy was also wrong due to a combination of factors. Jukyu sneered and slowly recited, "I am the king of the 8 barren lands, I am the king of the 10,000 rivers and mountains." His body floated in the air. "Everyone, go!" Miao Zhendong's pupils shrank. "Everyone, pay attention to your strength. Don't break it. If it breaks, the medicinal effect will be greatly reduced, and the loss will outweigh the gain." Everyone rushed forward. Jukyu let out a long howl and descended from the sky. He rushed into the crowd like a sharp arrow. Bang! After exchanging a palm strike with the second high priest, the second high priest's body retreated rapidly. He wanted to borrow the momentum of his retreat to dissipate this tyrannical impact. However, Jukyu, who was similarly impacted by the huge impact, did not retreat but instead advanced. Forcefully enduring the surging blood and chi in his chest, he let out a loud shout and grabbed out with both of his hands. The heads of the 2 second-grade Supreme Martial Artists were grabbed by him at the same time, and with a bang, the 2 watermelons exploded, splattering red all over the ground. After succeeding in his attack, he still didn't retreat. He took a step forward and kicked out. The high priest didn't take the attack. His body flashed, and his palm came down like a knife. Jukyu retracted his leg and moved to the left side of the high priest like a ghost. He actually put his shoulder under the high priest's palm. At the same time, he punched the high priest's left chest. The great consecrator let out a muffled groan as he spat out a mouthful of blood. It happened to merge with the blood that Jukyu had spat out. The great consecrator Miao Zhendong hastily retreated, but how could Jukyu let him escape? Among so many people, the most disgusting and hateful one was this old pervert, this tortoise bastard. His whole body withstood the attacks from all directions, and he moved forward like lightning. His palms were like giant axes that could split mountains, and he continuously attacked Miao Zhendong's chest. Miao Zhendong's body flew close to the ground as he retreated, and he kept defending with his palms. He was shocked and angry at the same time. "You don't want to live anymore." He couldn't be blamed for shouting like that. The other party's fighting style was obviously a suicidal fighting style. It was even a self-destructive attack. If he wasn't careful, he would die before he could kill Miao Zhendong. After all, the high priest was only taking on Jukyu's own attacks, and Jukyu himself had to take on countless attacks from all directions. Full of bullshit. "If you want to kill me, will you let me live? If you don't take the opportunity to find a scapegoat, when will you?" Jukyu smiled coldly. "Old bastard. Didn't you say that you want to eat my treasure? I'll give you a chance. Come and eat, you pervert." While he was talking, his hands still didn't relax. Suddenly, he roared, "Living beings of heaven and earth, be used by me. Come." 4th update. 3320 update. There are still 4.5 hours left until 24 o'clock. Can my monthly votes reach 3420? I continued to write. Chapter 1482. Following Jukyu's loud roar, the entire forest seemed to be shaking. Countless green streams of air swirled and surged towards the battlefield. Jukyu breathed out and inhaled. He fought crazily while using his body to resist the attacks. At the same time, he absorbed a huge amount of spirit energy to heal his injuries. He was injured at every moment, But he was also recovering at every moment. Bang bang bang, Miao Zhendong forcefully took a breath and received 17 palm attacks. Dukyu's qi and blood were already surging. Blood flowed out of his mouth. The surrounding Supreme's palm attacks were also landing on his body. However, he still didn't care. After a round of brute force, Miao Zhendong's last breath was completely exhausted, and he could no longer hold on. His face suddenly turned bright red, and he let out a miserable shriek. His entire right arm was broken, and he spat out a mouthful of blood that filled the sky. Part 777, A Powerful Monster. 5th update. His entire body plowed a huge ditch on the ground as he flew out with a boom. Miao Zhendong's momentum came to a stop when his back hit a large tree with a bang. However, before Miao Zhendong could recover from his shock, the roots of the large tree automatically emerged from the ground and tightly wrapped around him along with the vines at the side. Miao Zhendong let out a loud roar. Something that looked like a burning flame was emitted from his body. The surrounding roots and vines were instantly turned into ashes. Dukyu originally planned to continue chasing and killing Miao Zhendong. However, he didn't expect the sound of wind behind him. Following that, he roared, "Evil creature, damn it!" The second consecrator had finally arrived. This time, he went all out and didn't hold back anymore. If he held back any longer, he would probably end up in the same state as Miao Zhendong. After all, Dukyu's tyrannical strength and his determination to fight with his life were too terrifying. Seeing the second consecrator's ferocious attack, Dukyu didn't fight back. He somersaulted and escaped into the sky. He had already arrived on the trunk of a big tree. With a flash of green light, the tree branches grew densely and covered the entire sky above everyone's head. The second consecrator let out a loud roar and struck out with his palm. 100 feet tall demon. 5th update. The sky instantly cleared up. However, Dukyu was nowhere to be seen. Only a hoarse laughter could be heard. "Wait for your death. Bastards." Everyone leaped onto the treetops at the same time. As far as the eye could see, that green-clothed figure was nowhere to be seen. A painful groan came from below. The source was none other than High Consecrator Miao Zhendong. He's too powerful. Miao Zhendong's old face scrunched up like a cigar. He said angrily, "I didn't expect this treasure to be so fierce." Cough, cough, cough. As he coughed, he spat out several mouthfuls of blood. When he was fighting with Dukyu, his initial intention of retreating was to neutralize the huge amount of energy that was generated from the conflict between the two of them. Without any surprises, it was the most logical, even a supreme being of the highest grade. After exchanging a blow with his full strength, he also needed to retreat to reduce his strength. Otherwise, he would have to use his own body to withstand the huge impact caused by the aftershock of the palm strike, which would most likely cause his internal organs to be shaken. This wasn't a joke. Although it wasn't easy for Supreme Being experts to get injured, and they could quickly recover from ordinary injuries, it wasn't easy for them to recover from injuries caused by experts of the same level. But he never thought that he would encounter such a monster today. One of them had reached the peak of the 8th level of the Supreme Martial Artist realm. He completely disregarded his own safety and raised his hand to risk his life. This was really a weirdo. Not only did he not retreat after exchanging a blow with the second High Consecrator, he also fought with him until both of them were injured. In fact, he was getting crazier and crazier. Swords and sabers fell like rain, and fists and palms flowed like water. None of the attacks were a joke, but he didn't care at all. He just aimed at himself and crazily smashed 20 palms. He smashed himself down from the sky and smashed himself into the ground. That wasn't the end. He kept smashing himself until he couldn't catch his breath. Miao Zhendong could guarantee with his life that this bastard's injuries were definitely more serious than his own. In fact, it was more than twice as serious. But he still did it. He did it without any hesitation. He did it without any scruples. And what made Miao Zhendong the most sullen was that he wasn't the only one who wanted to eat him. Do you have to be so relentless? Do you dare to risk your life a little more? Miao Zhendong became even angrier after he carefully examined his injuries. His internal organs were severely damaged, and almost all of them showed signs of displacement. His right arm was broken, and his entire arm was shattered. He was almost half crippled, and 3 of his ribs were broken. Even breathing could cause him severe pain. Until now, he still had an uncontrollable urge to vomit blood. What the fuck was going on? This is really beyond the norm of martial arts. There's actually such a monster. The High Consecrator felt very embarrassed. He didn't know how long it had been since he was last injured. High Consecrator, this is what I think. That thing has such an ability. It should be like that in the first place. Another mid-grade supreme martial artist said with a wry smile, after all, it's a different existence from us. It's a demon. That makes sense. Miao Zhendong felt slightly relieved. He forced himself to stand up from the ground. There was no point in saying anything else now. It was more important to heal his injuries as soon as possible. The second High Consecrator hurried forward and transferred his cultivation to help heal his injuries. Among those present, only the second High Consecrator had this ability. The help of the others was either a drop in the bucket or would only make things worse. With the departure of that demon, the environment here seemed to have returned to normal. Thinking of that inexplicable battle just now, more than half of the 80 people who came out of the house were actually lost. Everyone's hearts were somewhat heavy. Everyone, let's continue forward. Miao Zhendong recovered some of his energy. He waved his hand and said, there's no need to be discouraged. This demon is already seriously injured. My injuries are already this bad, so his injuries are definitely more serious than mine. Most importantly, that fellow already hates us to the core. Such a strange creature that has taken human form is narrow-minded and vengeful. He will definitely not give up on revenge. His revenge is an opportunity that we can make use of. Therefore, everyone must be alert and pay attention to the movements around us. Since the opportunity has come, we must not let it slip through our fingers. High Consecrator is right, everyone said in unison. So what if a few people died? You have to give up something to gain something. If you want to gain something, you have to give something. How could there be success without sacrifice? Moreover, that fellow was already seriously injured, even more seriously than the High Consecrator. The High Consecrator still had the second Consecrator to help him recuperate. That demon couldn't possibly find another of his kind to help him recuperate, right? Big brother, I feel a little uneasy in my heart. I keep feeling that there's something wrong with what happened today. The second Consecrator frowned. Is it really a demon? The High Consecrator turned his head. You have other opinions. What I mean is, although that person's battle style is unusually strong and very different from ordinary people, I keep feeling that it's still a person fighting with us and not a demon. The second Consecrator was somewhat worried. My feeling tells me that the enemy we've provoked this time is an extremely strong and troublesome enemy, definitely not a demon. Ha ha ha. The High Consecrator laughed. Second brother, what do you think is the approximate level of this fellow's cultivation? 8th grade supreme martial artist peak. He's definitely not weaker than you and me, but in terms of strength, he's not necessarily stronger than us. They're roughly on par. The second Consecrator didn't even think about it. Both of them had the same understanding on this point. Let me ask you again. Second brother, how many people do you think there are in the entire continent who have such a cultivation? The High Consecrator scoffed and said, those who have such a cultivation, which one of them isn't in our information? And which one of them is unknown to us? And the most important thing is, do you know that there was once such a person? For a person to cultivate to 8th grade supreme martial artist, no matter what, he'd still need to roam the martial world and gain experience, right? Do you have any sense of familiarity with this fellow's information? His resume? Such a strange appearance and a hatred that's close to that of a wild beast. Has there ever been such a special kind of expert? No, I don't have any impression of him. There's not even one that's close to him. That's right. Then if he's really a human and not a demon, then did he fall from the sky? Or crawl out from the ground? The High Consecrator sneered. The second High Consecrator was speechless. Let's put aside his strange appearance and his almost disorganized fighting style. Have you noticed another very important thing? When he opens his hands, there's a patch of lush green. Wherever the greenery passes, the surrounding flowers and trees grow rapidly. Have you ever seen such a special ability? The High Consecrator snorted and said, even the entire forest can be used as an army by him to attack. What kind of person do you think would have such an ability? At this point, the High Consecrator laughed. The second High Consecrator nodded and said, Big Brother's words make sense. I'm probably thinking too much. The High Consecrator chuckled and said, Second Brother, don't worry too much. Or perhaps you should think more about how much benefits we can get after we capture this treasure. Ha ha ha, think about it carefully. Duke Yu, who was heavily injured, quickly escaped into the dense forest. In an instant, he was more than a few hundred miles away in a patch of green waves. Only then did he feel at ease to check the injuries on his body. He grimaced in pain. Motherfucker, I'm so aggrieved. I've never seen anything like this before. I've also never experienced such an inexplicable battle. Even until now, Duke Yu still didn't know what this group of perverts was doing. Which force did they belong to? Just like that, they fought until they were hovering between life and death. Looking at the injuries on his body, Duke Yu grimaced in pain. So ruthless. In that short battle just now, he was only focused on chasing after the perverted High Consecrator. He didn't care about the attacks of the others at all. Now that he checked, it was really shocking. It was fortunate that he didn't lose his life just now. There were more than 300 palms, more than 100 kicks, 70 to 80 fingers, and more than 10 knives, 20 to 30 swords. He believed that the legendary 100 palms entanglement and 1,000 cuts to pieces were nothing more than this. Chapter 1483. Actually, Duke Yu didn't know that his injuries this time were due to the enemy's mercy. If it wasn't for the Great Consecrator's warning, everyone, pay attention to your strength and don't break it, his injuries would have been even more serious. Duke Yu didn't dare to be negligent. This wasn't a light injury. Even with the help of the spirit energy, it would still take some time to heal. He immediately sat cross-legged to heal his injuries. He gritted his teeth and thought, You bastards, first you used words to tease me, then you said you wanted to eat me in front of me. You even treated me as a spirit. Fine, I'll show you perverts this time. If I can't kill you bastards and perverts, I'll tear off your dick and feed it to the dogs. This time, he used the power of the forest to heal his injuries, but the transmission channel came from underground. The strong enemy was here. Chapter 778, From being chased to being chased on the side, they were all people with extremely sharp divine senses. How would Duke Yu dare to rashly cross the sky to collect the spirit energy? However, the underground transmission was the same. The tide-like spirit energy was continuously transmitted into Duke Yu's body through the underground. At the same time, Duke Yu clearly felt that the aura of the City of Elves was rapidly emerging from an unknown depth underground and entering his body. Duke Yu only felt that his heavy injuries were rapidly healing. It was almost in an instant. This made Duke Yu's desire to find Chu Yang and restore the City of Elves even stronger. As the High Priest's injuries advanced and healed, he took some healing elixirs and had already recovered a lot. Other than his broken arm and ribs which still needed some time to heal, his internal injuries were basically no longer a problem. He also became more energetic. As for the expression on his face, it was no different from before. Along the way, a group of supreme martial artists led the way. There were also a dozen or so experts who simply stepped on the treetops to advance, afraid that they would miss any traces of the treasure. It didn't take long. They had already walked for 200 miles. The surroundings were silent, and this silence seemed to be able to last forever. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. It was filled with the fragrance of flowers and birds, as well as an aura unique to the forest. They almost didn't encounter any obstructions or disturbances. The only obstruction was the 70 to 80 poisonous snakes that they killed along the way. However, this little threat to a supreme martial artist was completely not worth mentioning. Could it be that the treasure is afraid? He has already escaped. One of the 5th grade supreme martial artists muttered. It can't be that smart. The other person was also a little surprised and doubtful. If their precious Gigi were to run away, then all of them would have lost everything. They would not have gained anything at all. Not only did he not gain anything, he even had to sacrifice the lives of dozens of supreme martial artists. At this moment, a blood-curdling scream suddenly rang out, and a very familiar green light flashed past. He was one of the 10 supreme martial artists who were exploring the way at the top of the tree. 2 people somersaulted and fell to the ground. Only the remaining few people could be heard shouting angrily. Then, the sound of an intense battle could be heard. The people under the tree naturally did not dare to be negligent. With a whoosh sound, they all rushed forward, only to discover that their intense battle had already ended. However, those 8 supreme martial artists still maintained their battle postures, but their enemies had already disappeared without a trace. The high priest instructed a few 7th grade supreme martial artists to observe the surroundings to see if they could find any traces of the sneak attackers escaping. Then, they rushed to the place where the 2 sneak attackers had fallen. He focused his gaze and saw the 2 people on the ground. Blood was still gurgling out of their throats. They could not be any more dead. There were many tree roots and vines entwined around the 2 corpses, as if trying to pull the 2 corpses into the ground. The lower half of their bodies had already been dragged in quite a bit. Seeing this strange situation, everyone looked on helplessly. They tried to keep calm on the surface, but their hearts were already cold. What happened just now? Miao Zhendong asked loudly. Just now, we were flying all the way, searching for traces of that spirit, but we didn't find anything. Suddenly, a person appeared out of nowhere in midair. His entire body was green. Because his appearance was too sudden, we were completely unprepared. 3rd brother Mu and 4th brother Che's throats were grabbed by that person, and then blood spurted out. We hurriedly went to help them, but that person immediately let go and ran away. He didn't say a word, and then mysteriously disappeared again. Although that person only appeared for a short time, we can still confirm that he is that treasure from before. That green body, I definitely won't be mistaken. The person with the highest cultivation in the previous group replied. The person who replied could still tell the whole story. As for the supreme martial artist beside him, he was obviously frightened. The 2 people who had just died were right next to him. They were the closest to him. He could even feel their desperate struggle at the last moment. In just a moment, 2 supreme being experts who had similar cultivation levels to him were finished just like that. If the other party's target was me, even with the cultivation of Mu Laosan and Che Laosan, they couldn't even put up any resistance and were finished just like that. Another person's face was pale. This demon is too scary, don't say any more. Everyone, don't worry about nothing and disturb the morale of the troops. Let's continue forward. Miao Zhendong's face was gloomy. Everyone was silent. Because everyone could feel an extremely strong sense of danger rising spontaneously. If the other party came out to fight openly, they wouldn't be afraid. In fact, they would be more than happy to do so. However, the other party was obviously very smart. He only hid in the dark and launched a sneak attack. Once he succeeded, he didn't linger and disappeared in an instant. Everyone knew that this entire forest was the other party's home ground. The other party could appear and disappear unpredictably, and hide in an instant. But what about them? This time, the ones who died were Mu Laosan and Che Laosan. Then, who would be the next one? Would it be them? Everyone was silent for a moment and continued to move forward. Originally, they were inexplicably excited about the treasure hunting trip, but because of the huge accident just now, everyone felt insecure. Everyone walked carefully for a few miles. Suddenly, there was another sudden scream. The body of the person who was walking at the back exploded into a bloody mist. Everyone hurriedly turned back to check, but only saw a green figure flash and disappear. A sinister laugh reverberated in the air. "Come out, you demon!" Miao Zhendong shouted. "What kind of hero are you if you keep hiding? If you have the guts, come out and fight openly." A low, sinister laughter came from the green forest. I'm not a hero. I'm a demon. Miao Zhendong heard it and cursed continuously. Everyone couldn't help but be speechless. High priest, what kind of hero are you talking to a demon about? Many people cursed silently. That demon was obviously a smart one. Was he stupid enough to rush out and fight a big group of supreme martial artists? What's more, he had already suffered once before. As long as he wasn't crazy, he wouldn't voluntarily come out and sacrifice himself, right? Right now, the enemy is in the open while we are in the dark. It's quite unfavorable for us. The only thing we can do now is to increase our speed and pass through this boundless forest as soon as possible. The second high priest frowned. Even if he wants to take revenge, he can only do it when we are still in the forest. Once we increase our speed, we will definitely mess up his plan. As long as we can leave this place, we don't have to worry about his plot. If he doesn't do anything, then after we pass through, we can call more experts the next time we come back. We don't have to worry about him escaping to the sky. The second high priest said, moreover, this demon is so strong. Even if others come, as long as they don't have a specific strategy, I believe they may not be able to subdue him. Therefore, big brother, you don't have to worry about him being taken away by others when you come back. Oh right, we can use fire to attack and burn the whole forest. Let's see if he can grow faster or the fire can burn faster. Fire won't work. Once there is a fire here, I'm afraid we will be the first ones to fall into the sea of fire. It's hard for us to get out from such a far distance. Moreover, this demon moves very quickly. He can hide in this huge forest anytime. Fire won't be able to catch up to him. Since that's the case, we can only come back next time. That's true. Miao Zhendong muttered to himself for a moment and said, it's decided then. When we come back next time, we will take this thing in one fell swoop. Everyone's spirits were lifted. Next, everyone became alert and quickened their pace. They cut through all obstacles and advanced bravely. However, no matter how fast they were, this forest covered an area of thousands of miles. How could they cross it in such a short period of time? Not to mention that everyone had deliberately slowed down their speed in order to search carefully. Their progress now was not even a quarter of the whole journey. As they advanced, another 3 people fell into the forest and became nutrients for the plants. Originally, there were only half of the 40 people left. Now, there were 12 people left. People kept getting killed. Everyone's faces became gloomier as they rushed forward at full speed. Every time Duke Yu made a move, he would first choose the weakest and easiest to deal with. Every time he made a move, he would not miss. Once he succeeded, he would not stop. He was like a ghost wandering in the human world. Moreover, this was in the dark of the night. Home ground. Absolute home ground. He could even appear from any tree to carry out an attack. He could suddenly appear from any bush. Every time he appeared, one person would disappear from the world forever. As the number of people continued to decrease, the fear of unknown attacks in everyone's hearts grew stronger and stronger. The initial excitement of seeing a human-shaped treasure had long flown away. 28 people left. Duke Yu was still wandering freely in the forest. Not far away, he looked at the group of people who were rushing forward, intending to leave the forest. He calculated silently in his heart. Since he made a move again, he had already killed 12 people. Such a result made Duke Yu feel that he was a fool for choosing to fight the enemy head-on just now. However, low-level supreme beings were basically extinct now, and the remaining ones were all high-level supreme beings. Each one of them was stronger than the last. If he wanted to kill them silently like he did before, it would undoubtedly be much more difficult for him to escape unscathed after landing a blow. Duke Yu's eyes shot out a green light in the dark forest. He was carefully considering his next strategy. Chapter 1484. At this moment, everyone's hearts were sullen and depressed to the point of madness. There was also an indescribable sense of fear. A mid-grade supreme martial artist actually needed someone to protect him just for a breath of air. He needed 2 8th grade supreme martial artists and 2 8th grade supreme martial artists to protect him. Even so, he wasn't completely safe. How ridiculous was this? Would anyone believe it if he told them? But at this moment, the 4 people below had already scouted out the terrain. Just as the 4 above were about to descend, another mishap befell him. A strange, almost illusory figure shot out from the forest below like a bolt of lightning. With only a swoosh sound, it crossed the sky and crashed into the group of 4 2nd grade supreme martial artists like a meteor. The second high priest roared, Part 7 Chapter 780, The Breakthrough of a Mid-Grade Supreme Martial Artist. Be careful ... Before he could finish his sentence, there was a muffled bang. Duke Yu's resolute palm, which contained all of his cultivation, had already landed accurately on the dantian of a mid-grade supreme martial artist. The other 3 immediately counterattacked, drawing their swords and sabers at the same time. Their counterattacks were as swift as lightning. Duke Yu let out a long laugh and actually didn't dodge or evade. He took on the 3 terrifying attacks head-on, causing blood to splatter everywhere. Then, he forcefully grabbed the shoulder of another mid-grade supreme martial artist, while his other hand slapped cleanly on the top of this person's head. Then, he abruptly raised his knee and hit this person's dantian. Pa. There was a very crisp sound. This mid-grade supreme martial artist's head first shattered. Then, his dantian exploded, turning into minced meat at the same time as the previous mid-grade supreme martial artist, flying in all directions. The second high priest's sword came attacking with the sound of wind and thunder. His attack was extremely fast and violent. Duke Yu didn't receive the attack. He quickly retreated. However, there was a shining sword on his thigh and lower abdomen. There were 2 swords and 4 holes in his body. He flew down with blood dripping from his body. Behind him, there was still a sword light like lightning. Just as the sword light touched his back, he turned into a ball of green light again and completely disappeared in the vast forest. The second high priest's expression changed. Part 7 Chapter 780, The Breakthrough of a Mid-Grade Supreme Martial Artist. He stood there with a pale face. Facing such an unexpected situation, he had an urge to curse. The other party was too cunning and too cruel. He did not hesitate to exchange injuries for injuries. He would rather be heavily injured to kill the enemy. What a ruthless person. Everyone, let's go. Chief Consecrator Miao Zhendong's spirit was somewhat dispirited, and his eyes were already somewhat dull. Along the way, another 2 middle-grade supreme martial artists fell one after another. Then, even the 7th grade supreme martial artists finally started to become Duke Yu's hunting target. Once all the low-grade supreme martial artists were dead, it would naturally be the turn of the 7th grade supreme martial artists. During this process, the High Consecrator and his entourage also confirmed a terrifying fact. It caused their last bit of stubbornness to completely vanish. This discovery was not a big deal. It was just that they realized that no matter how serious the injuries were, this spirit could quickly recover. When it appeared in front of them again, it would definitely be full of spirit and vitality. That was all. His injuries were worsening all the way, while the other party kept on recovering. He was like a cockroach that couldn't be killed. With such unequal conditions and a negative environment, it would be strange if he still had confidence. The High Consecrator was the last to arrive. There was only one word: escape. If you could escape, you were lucky. If you couldn't, you were unlucky. That was all. It was evening. Seeing a cloud of smoke finally appearing in front of them, both the High Consecrator and the Second Consecrator had tears streaming down their faces. The heavens had pity on them. This journey to hell, to the death of the gods, had finally come to an end. We are finally going to get out of this damned forest. This period of running for our lives is really unbearable to look back on. Just thinking about it made them scared. It was an eternal nightmare. Looking at each other who was all alone, both of them had tears in their eyes. The joy of being reborn after so many years, they had long forgotten what tears were. At this moment, they could not hold back their tears. 80 people came out, and now, only the 2 of us are left. Even the 3 7th grade supreme martial artists were all dead now. The other party's viciousness caused the two of them who'd experienced many battles to tremble with fear, and just thinking about it caused them to feel a wave of terror. Who would have imagined that what seemed to be a peerless fortune that descended from the heavens was actually a peerless calamity? Speaking of this part of the journey, the most frightening part was the last 1,500 miles. When the human-shaped demon killed the last two 7th grade supreme martial artists, the two high consecrators did not dare to help at all. It was not that the two high consecrators did not want to help, but it was meaningless. The human-shaped demon was too vicious, completely disregarding its own safety and fighting with its life. But it had the ability to do so. Not to mention one 8th grade supreme martial artist, even 3 or 4 of them would have died. But it only needed to hide for a while and immediately recover to its peak state. How could they fight such a battle? It was better to let the demon suffer the counterattacks of the two 7th grade supreme martial artists before their deaths. The more severe its injuries, the longer it could hide and recover, giving them more time to escape from this ghost town. For the next 1,500 miles, the two high consecrators were on tenterhooks, suspecting that everywhere they looked could be an ambush set by the demon. They perfectly acted out what it meant to be jittery at the slightest sound. But until they escaped from the vast forest, they still did not encounter any attacks. This result made both of them anxious and doubtful. Could it be that the other party actually gave up at such a time? Or was it that the counterattacks of the two 7th grade supreme martial artists before their deaths caused too much damage to him and he could not recover in time? But no matter what, it was fortunate that they were able to escape, no matter what. At the last moment, the two of them actually used a secret technique, risking a huge loss of cultivation, and almost disregarding their lives, escaped out of the dense forest in the northwest direction. They only hated that their parents did not give birth to them with 2 more legs. "Mom, I won't be greedy next time." "Bah, there won't be a next time, there definitely won't be a next time." It was not that Dukyu really did not want to continue the chase, but after he fought hard and killed the last two 7th grade supreme martial artists, although he was also seriously injured, his injuries were still within the range of being able to recover quickly. He had absolute confidence that he could recover in a short period of time and continue the hunt. But at that moment, something happened. Dukyu inexplicably felt some kind of mysterious feeling. This feeling was very familiar, yet also very strange and distant. It was the feeling of breaking through. Dukyu really gritted his teeth. "I was about to break through just now, but was interrupted by a group of perverts, and was even treated as a demon by that group of perverts, which almost angered me to death. It was not easy to kill this group of perverts and bastards. Just as I was happily killing them, I suddenly had a breakthrough. What is this called? You left when you shouldn't have left, and you came when you shouldn't have come. What do you want me to do? What do I do? What do I do? Do I do it according to the highest standards? Serve him diligently." Although he was angry, Dukyu still did not dare to have the slightest bit of neglect. Since the opportunity to break through came again, it was better to do it honestly. As for the remaining 2 8th grade supreme martial artists, he would let them go first. At most, he would find them after he broke through. Anyway, today's hatred could only be washed away with their blood. Previously, he heard from their conversation that they were going to the northwest to deal with the Calamity Swordmaster. When the time came, he would directly go to the northwest to settle the score with them after he broke through. Dukyu's temper had always been like this. To those who offended him, even if they were thousands of miles away to the ends of the earth, he would definitely teach them a lesson. As for those who he wanted to kill, he had never let any of them go. How could Dukyu let the two consecrators who escaped escape so easily? You can escape for a while, but do you have the ability to escape for a lifetime? This was definitely not a casual remark. Besides, I originally planned to go to Chuyang for help immediately after I broke through to 8th grade Supreme Martial Artist. But if I took the initiative to go to him, that guy would definitely ask me for help. Now that I have such a legitimate reason to go, I will be doing him a great favor. Those are 2 peak 8th grade Supreme Martial Artists experts. I helped him and even took revenge. When the time comes, I won't have to be embarrassed when I ask him for help. It's a good thing to kill two birds with one stone. Duke Yu's heart was full of calculations. One day later, the two great consecrators had already fled thousands of miles away from the boundless forest. They were rushing towards the rendezvous point with all their might. Suddenly, they felt the earth tremble. Then, an earth-shattering pressure came from behind them. The distance was already very far, and this feeling was also very faint. But the higher the level of the supreme martial artist, the more obvious this feeling was. At this moment, an 8th grade supreme martial artist actually appeared. The two of them looked at each other and saw the shock in each other's eyes at the same time. They both exclaimed. Only when an 8th grade supreme martial artist had just broken through would there be such a scale of power. Speaking of breaking through to the supreme martial artist level, it was also the biggest wish of these two since they reached the peak of 8th grade supreme martial artist 1,500 years ago. At this moment, someone had broken through, but it wasn't them. At this moment, the two of them felt really strange. It was almost indescribable with words. Who exactly broke through? The two of them leaped into the sky at the same time and looked back. The most likely location of the breakthrough is directly in the boundless mountain forest. The two of them looked at each other and saw the cold sweat on each other's forehead. Could it be that it was that monster who broke through? Miao Zhendong's face was ashen. Most likely. I was still wondering why he didn't chase after us in the last 1,000 miles. So it turns out that he didn't give up, but that he was suddenly facing a breakthrough. The second great master swallowed a mouthful of saliva. If he really succeeded in breaking through, wouldn't the two of us have provoked a great enemy that we can't match? Miao Zhendong's old face was distorted. Damn it, did he have to be so deceitful? He chased after us all the way for fun, and when we're done for, he even made a breakthrough. Isn't this asking us to live in a nightmare for the rest of our lives? I even suspect that he broke through because of the battle with us. After so many battles of life and death, he has been on the verge of death several times. It's not strange for him to break through at the same time as us. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.